Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for giving me an opportunity to serve all of you today morning. I have been given the verse by Gaur Sharan Prabhu, and I have been asked to speak on the 9th canto, um, 13th chapter, text number 13 to 27. So I'll just briefly read the last verse of this section, and then we can have discussions. I'll make a small presentation on this, and then if you have, we'll take some questions also. So this text number 27, I will read the translation and purport, and then we can have this. Then we can have the class. So chapter 13 for the 9th canto, entitled "The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi," text number 27. Ete vai maitila rajan atma vidya visharada yogeshwara prasadena dvandver mukta griheshwapi. My dear King Parikshit, all the kings of the dynasty of Mithila were completely in knowledge of their spiritual identity. Therefore, even though staying at home, they were liberated from the duality of material existence. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This material world is called Dvaita or duality. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 4.176 says, Dvaite Badra Badra Gyan Sabha Mano Dharma Yahi Bhalo Yahi Manda Yahi Sabha Brahma. In the world of duality, that is to say in the material world, so-called goodness and badness are both the same. Therefore, in this world, to distinguish between good and bad, happiness and distress is meaningless because they are both mental concoctions, manodharma. Because everything here is miserable and troublesome, to create an artificial situation and pretend it to be full of happiness is simply illusion. The liberated person, being above the influence of the three modes of material nature, is unaffected by such dualities in all circumstances. He remains Krishna conscious by tolerating so-called happiness and distress. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.14. Matras parshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agamapai no nitya stam titikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception or sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Those who are liberated, being on the transcendental platform of rendering service to the Lord, do not care about so-called happiness and distress. They know that these are like changing seasons, which are perceivable by contact with the material body. Happiness and distress come and go. Therefore, a Pandita, a learned man, is not concerned with them. As it is said, Gata suna gata sumscha nanusho chanti panditaha, Bhagavad Gita 2.11. The body is dead from the very beginning because it is a lump of matter. It has no feelings of happiness and distress. Because the soul within the body is in the bodily concept of life, he suffers happiness and distress, but these come and go. It is understood herewith that the kings born in the dynasty of Mithila were all liberated persons, unaffected by the so-called happiness and distress of this world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. Hare Krishna. So what we are reading is a very interesting section because here you will see so many names mentioned of so many kings. So we hear the names of, it begins with Udavasu, then from him came Nandi Vardhana, then Suketu, Devarata, and Drishtaketu, Maru. I mean, the names are so many. Mahadriti, Kriti, Tara, Mahorama, Swarnorama, Harshavaroma. And remember, these names mentioned over 15 verses, they're all of pure devotees of Krishna. They have lived a glorious life, and some of them rule the entire planet Earth. But when we look now, although they're all pure devotees, because their names are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, yet what is very interesting is that these are simply names for many of us. In fact, we don't know anything about these personalities. We just know their names. Of course, just reading their names is also purifying because they are exalted souls. But nevertheless, the fact remains that thousands of years later, as we are reading this, for us, they are mere names. We know nothing about them except that they are pure devotees and their names are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And some of them rule the entire planet Earth. But today, they are simply names for us. Please note this. In fact, if you read the names once again, you will see at least 25 names are mentioned in this section. So many descendants of King Nimi, and each one of them is exalted, but they mean nothing thousands of years later. So this reveals the power of time factor. Right now, I may consider myself as very important. Somebody may be the president of a country, or somebody may be so influential that he is a household name in the entire planet. Everybody may know him. But hundreds of years later, he means nothing, just like the pure devotees mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, where once upon a time, exalted devotees known to everyone, but today we simply know them as names. Of course, this doesn't discount their importance, this doesn't discount their greatness, but nevertheless, there's another way of seeing this, that this world is a world of duality, and everything is subject to destruction by the force of time. Time factor is all powerful, and therefore in today's purport also Srila Prabhupada writes that tolerance is the key. We need to tolerate provocative situations because this world is a world of duality. We go through happiness, distress, we go through these waves, but as a result of years of the struggle, eventually we become an insignificant statistic. We are lost. Therefore, we need to tolerate the dualities of this world and focus on what is really important for us, which in our Krishna consciousness movement is connection to Krishna. And if we do that, then once we give up this body, we rejoin Krishna in our eternal abode. Otherwise, the world will spare no one. I often say these 4 words, no one is spared. That's the law of this material world. I mean, so many important people we have known and whose names we have read, they all had to one day leave this world. Once Srila Prabhupada was walking with his disciples in the beach at Jagannath Puri, with the eastern coast of India. And this was 1977 January. So as they were walking, Srila Prabhupada saw one young boy jumping in the waves, and he was swimming and was excited. At this point of time, Srila Prabhupada was 81 years old. And he saw this young 20-year-old boy running in the waves and jumping. And Srila Prabhupada stopped walking and he hit his cane on the ground on the soft sand beach. And then he looked at that boy and smiled, and then looked at his disciples. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, just like this boy is running here, even I came here to Jagannath Puri when I was 24 years old in the year 1920. And I also ran in the waves just like this young boy is running. I was also running here. I was also enjoying in the waves. I was a young 24-year-old man. And now I'm 81 years old. And when I look at this boy, I feel it was yesterday that I was running and playing in the same beach. And then Srila Prabhupada said, 57 years have passed like this. That is the power of time. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes, Evam griheshu saktanam pramattanam tadiyaya atyakramadavighyata kalaha parama dustara. Kala means time. Parama dustara, it is an extremely informidable force. Because, why? Because pramattanam tadiyaya, because time makes one blind to reality, and time moves atyakramat avijnata. Avijnata means imperceptibly. Time's movement is said to be imperceptible, which means we can't really know how time is going. I mean, we all, time we cannot see, but time reveals to us many things. Time shows us many things, although time cannot be seen. Therefore, the Bhagavatam calls time as atyakramat avijnata. Avijnata is a Sanskrit word which means imperceptible. Just like, the nails on your fingers, they grow. And you don't know how that, you can't see them growing, right? But one day you see, oh, they've grown big and I need to trim them. I need to remove them. Or the hair on your head. I mean, you look at the mirror, you feel everything is normal, everything is same, but it is imperceptibly growing. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes that when the river is flowing, at every second there are new water molecules there at that particular point of a place as the water is flowing downstream. But to a to an ordinary eye, it appears as if it's the same water, it's smooth. But every second there is a change. Like if I ask you what is the exact time now, you may say it's what, 7:27. If I say no, tell me the exact time, you may say, I don't know, whatever the time is in New York right now, you may say it is 7:27 and 25 seconds. And if I ask you, are you sure? You can't say you're sure, because the moment you said it, the time has sped past that time. So it's no longer the same time. So time is so imperceptible. Time moves extremely fast. And therefore, we see that all these great names that we've read today in these 15 verses, they have all been washed away by the waves of time. By the power of time, the great mighty Himalayas will reduce to dust. The Taj Mahal would be gone by the power of time. It's not simply our watch or our dress or our body. Everything of this world will go through a transformation. So therefore, we as a spiritualist, we need to understand and see things from this broader perspective and invest our time in things that are really important for the soul's onward journey. And that is Krishna consciousness. And therefore, as Srila Prabhupada reveals in today's purport, tolerance plays a very important role. Tolerating provocative situations in this world, as events turn up, they assume a much more significance than what they deserve to be. And then we get overwhelmed by the nature of the news. And then we get carried away, we get lost, we get distracted. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita appeals to us, be focused on what is really important for you. And the strength to tolerate these provocative situations comes when we have an anchor on Krishna. Because if you simply tolerate, tolerance by itself is not a great virtue, because it can cause a lot of frustration. And like a volcano, simply tolerating, you may just one day burst out. So tolerance coupled with favorable remembrance of Krishna is what helps a spiritualist, what helps a devotee navigate through the troubled waters of this material world and experience spiritual happiness. And for us in ISKCON, we are fortunate, we are blessed, we have the chanting of the holy names, we have Krishna who gives us this higher taste. And Krishna helps us handle the challenges of this material world. The Srimad Bhagavatam beautifully describes Iti Nandadayo Gopa Krishna Rama Katam Muda Uruvanto Rama Manascha Navindam Bhava Vedanam. In this beautiful verse, it is described that Nanda Adayo Gopa, Nanda Maharaj and his friends in Vrindavan and the other cowherd men and women of Vrindavan, what would they do? Iti Nandadayo Gopa Krishna Rama Katam Muda. They would derive great joy in speaking about Krishna and Balaram. They would speak Krishna Katha. And by doing that, what happened? They got three benefits, which is very interesting. Kuruvanto, because they did that, because they were talking about Krishna, they were having morning Bhagavatam classes like this we have. Kuruvanto, Rama Manascha, first Rama, their happiness increased and multiplied manifold. Second, Manascha, their affection for Krishna increased. And third, Navindam, they did not perceive Bhava Vedanam, the tribulations of this material world. These are the three benefits. One is their happiness increased, their affection for Krishna multiplied, and they did not perceive the troubles caused by material world. For this world, by nature, gives us constant challenges. And sometimes these challenges overwhelm our consciousness to such an extent that we lose track from our focused goal. But even the residents of Vrindavan faced challenges. There were demons attacking Vrindavan every day. So they also had their share of anxieties. And yet, they could transcend those anxieties because they were constantly glorifying Krishna. They were hearing about Krishna. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam paradigm. This is the Srimad Bhagavatam solution for dealing with the challenges of life. In the third canto, we find an interesting discussion where Vidura is asking Maitreya Rishi for help. And while asking him philosophical questions, he says, Sukhaya karmani karoti loko, nate sukham va nyaditaramamba. Vindeta bhuya tateva dukkham, nayatra yuktam bhagavan vadena. Oh Maitreya Rishi, I am observing a perplexing phenomenon. Can you please guide me on this? And what is the strange phenomenon of this world? Sukhaya karmani karoti loko. People work hard to get happiness. But what happens is, nate sukham va nyaditaramamba. They don't get that positive happiness. Then they say, fine, let me readjust my expectations and let me become more realistic. But then, itaramamba, then they want to mitigate their existing miseries. But unfortunately, what happens is, Vindeta bhuya tateva dukkham. Their miseries increase with efforts to increase happiness. This is the paradox. So it's like this. I am at -2 axis. In the y-axis, I'm in -2. I want to come to +5, +6. And that's why I undertake steps. But I'm not able to go to +6. So I think, okay, let me at least come to 0. So minus axis represents misery, 0 represents relief, and positive axis represents positive happiness. So when we are suffering at -2, -3, we want to come to +3, +4, +5. But when we don't do that, we make our expectations more realistic and seek to get at least relief, and we want to come to 0. But the nature of this world Vidura describes to Maitreya is that instead of coming to 0, from -2, we slip down further to -5 or -6. That's the nature of this world. The more endeavor we make for positive happiness, the more entangled life becomes. So what do we do? And then before Maitreya Rishi could answer this question, Vidura, as he's introspecting, he says, maybe I reckon it's because of Janasya Krishnad Vimukasya Devad Adharmashilasya Sudukkitasya Anugrahaye Acharanti Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya. He says, oh, maybe people have forgotten Krishna. Is that the reason, my dear Maitreya Rishi, why people are unhappy? Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Devad. And because of that, Adharmashilasya Sudukkitasya, they may be living a life where certain spiritual principles are absent. And because of that, they may get more and more dukkha, more and more misery. But I have hope, because I see great saintly people like you, Anugrahaye Acharanti Nunam. You are wandering all over the planet. Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya. You are giving Krishna to everyone. So I'm sure people will get benefited. So Vidura is appreciating Maitreya Rishi after asking this question and is awaiting an answer. So this is a very beautiful conversation that happens. And Maitreya Rishi, after hearing these questions from Vidura, he now gives his answer why people are unhappy and what they need to do to become spiritually vibrant, spiritually excited. And he speaks this famous verse. Soham rinam shulla sukhaya dukkham mahagatanam viramaya tasya pravartay bhagavatam puranam yadaha sakshat bhagavan rishibhya. He says, in this world, soham, most of the human beings, nrinam, shulla sukha, they get little happiness, and for that little happiness, mahad dukkha, they have to go through a lot of suffering to get little happiness. So therefore, how do we correct this situation? So he says, Pravartahe Bhagavatam Puranam Yadaha Sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhya. Vedavyas Rishi, understanding this situation, has compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. When we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, we will experience, when we study Srimad Bhagavatam or attend the morning classes like what you are doing now, when we do this, over a period of time, this culture of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam will fill our heart with a favorable remembrance of Krishna. And that favorable remembrance of Krishna will fill our heart with a special kind of happiness, which will make us feel that life is worth living. We can tolerate life. Srila Prabhupada wants us to tolerate in today's purport. And the strength for tolerance comes when we experience the Krishna rasa, when we experience the mellow of Krishna, when we remember Krishna with gratitude, when we remember Krishna in a prayerful mood, the happiness, the fulfillment of the heart that is experienced by that favorable remembrance will help us tolerate the challenges offered by the material world. So if that's the case, if Srimad Bhagavatam is the solution, a logical question that arises is, okay, how do I read Bhagavatam or how do I study Srimad Bhagavatam? Like the class is happening now, how do I ensure that I get maximum benefits out of this? Now, when you are doing yoga, for example, the yoga instructor will tell us, okay, breathe normally, or twist your body or bend your body in a certain way, and we want to get maximum benefits from a yoga pose, right? We want it to yield us good health benefits when we are doing an exercise. Similarly, when we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, when we are studying the scriptures, we need to do it in a certain way by which we can also experience the benefits. We can maximize our returns. And what is the way to do it? So there are three things we could do when we are hearing any class or when we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam. First, after the class, like when you're in your own private space, or you're alone, or you're with your friend, you could first ask yourself, what did I hear now? Or what did I study today? What was it all about? Just recall. That's the first step. Just recall. Once you have done that, then you ask the second question. What was the striking point in today's class? What is it that I studied today that I really feel was very important? So what is it that left an impression in my heart? What was striking? So this is the second question we could ask. So the first question is, what did I read today? What did I study today? What are it all about? That's the first question. The second is, what was striking? What resonated with me? What impressed me? That is the second question. And the third question we could ask is, well, from whatever I studied or heard and whatever impressed me or whatever struck me the most, what can I apply in my life and make my life better? So when you ask these three questions, we can get maximum advantage out of what we have read or heard in a class. And therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained to us how we should study scriptures or how we should hear the scriptures. Shrutasya pumsam suchira shramasya nanvanjasa suribiriditorta tatad gunanu shravanam mukunda Padaravindam Hridayeshu Yesham. If we do 6 things, the Srimad Bhagavatam assures us that we will experience Krishna in our hearts. What are those 6 things? Shrutasya, first is just hear about Krishna. Shrutasya Pumsam Suchira. Suchira means for a long time. Don't think, okay, I'm hearing Bhagavatam class for 2 weeks and then I think I should become a pure devotee. No. Shrutasya, hear for a long time. Have hearing practice as a long-term project. And what happens then? Shrutasya pumsam suchira. Suchira means for a long time. Continuous, basically it means consistency. So if we hear about Krishna consistently, and then the third thing is Shrutasya pumsam suchira shramasya. Shramasya means hard work. Hearing about Krishna calls for hard work. It's not a lazy man's affair. It's not that you just sit down, relax, You do multitasking, you also do your work and also hear the class. I mean, you could do that, you can do that as an extra activity. But the primary yoga, the Shravanam yoga, the hearing yoga is when I work hard. That is, for example, if I'm hearing a class and if I feel sleepy, then I need to stand up and hear, or I need to be attentive. I need to work hard for it. This is the third thing. And then Shrutasya Pumsam Suchira Shamasya Nan Anjasa. Hear a pastime in great detail. Don't cut corners. Like, for example, right now, I'm speaking about the verses and I'm also trying to explain the words within the verses, and I'm trying to explain in greater detail the meaning of these verses. So basically studying in detail, not simply the superficially. That is the fourth qualification needed. Nan Vanjasa Suribir. Suribir means hearing from a proper authority, a proper source. That's also very, very important. You know, like Srila Prabhupada says, if the man is potent and the woman is fertile, and when they combine together and they unite, then a child is produced. But then Srila Prabhupada would say that if the speaker of the Bhagavatam is potent, in the sense he's carrying Krishna in his heart and is a desire to give Krishna, and the hearer is like the woman in this analogy, she is fertile or she is ready to, the hearer is ready and willing to receive Krishna. So if the speaker is enthusiastic to glorify Krishna and the hearer is enthusiastic to receive Krishna, then their combination will give birth to Krishna in the heart of both the speaker and the hearer. So these are the 5 things. Okay, there are 6 things here. Shrutasya, hear about Krishna. Shuchira, for a long time. Shamasya, hard work. Nan Anjasa, in great detail. Suribir, from bona fide, from proper devotees. And then Iditorta. Iditorta means try to understand the meaning of everything that you read and hear. So if you do these 6 things, what will happen? Tatat Gunano Shravanam Mukunda. If we hear about Krishna like this, Pada Ravindam Hridaye Shuesham, the heart would be resplendent with Krishna. So this is the appeal of Srimad Bhagavatam. So to summarize what we discussed so far is that the Bhagavatam in this chapter has described so many names of pure devotees who are great souls, but we see that time is so powerful that today for many people they are simply names. So what to speak of us then who are not as spiritually exalted? Basically, the Srimad Bhagavatam is appealing to us to understand what is really important and invest our limited time in things that will help us get out of the entanglements of material world. And Srila Prabhupada appeals to us in today's purport to practice tolerance and know the dualities of this world and face the dualities. And then in today's class, we discussed how simply tolerating is not sufficient because like a volcano, our minds would explode unless we invest Krishna in our minds, unless we connect with a higher taste. And we discussed from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam how Nanda Maharaj and all the residents of Vrindavan, they constantly glorify Krishna, because of which they experience 3 benefits. They experience great happiness, their affection for Krishna expands, and most importantly, they're not able to perceive the miseries of material world, although they themselves are constantly attacked by demons and they have their share of anxieties, but they're able to transcend them. Then we discussed how do we ensure that we can remember Krishna. So for that, we found solutions in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Vidura is asking a question rhetorically to Maitreya Rishi about why people are working hard for happiness, but they're getting more distress. And then Maitreya Rishi in response says that it's because they're disconnected from Krishna, and if we take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, we would experience the joy of spiritual practices. And then we discussed how do we study Srimad Bhagavatam. We discussed the 3-step formula. That is, we ask the question after the class, what did I hear or study today? Second, what was very striking today in the class that I heard? And third, what can I apply in my life? And we concluded with this very beautiful verse from the 3rd canto, where 6 steps are given to us to make our hearing very effective. First is the process of hearing in itself. Second, hearing for a long time. Third, hearing it as a hard work or as an effort. And fourth, we hear in detail, not cut corners. And we hear from, 5th is we hear from pure devotees or advanced devotees or devotees who are enthusiastic to glorify Krishna. And the last is we hear the deep meanings of these verses. So if we do this, rest assured, Krishna would reveal himself in our hearts. So this was what I gathered from reading today's verse. Now we can have some comments or questions. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions regarding today's
Hare
class?
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I'm very grateful for you giving the class today. I think this is the first time I've ever heard you speak. And what I want to take away from this, as you said, to apply to my life, is that I love the clarification about how it's not just tolerating and how tolerating alone can just cause that bitterness and that outburst, but that it's about tolerating and remembering Krishna. And I've never, maybe somebody did say it and I didn't catch it, but I've never had that clarification brought up when someone's talking about tolerating. And it really helps because I've always felt that when I'm being told just tolerate it, that it's like a burden. And the way that you put it with the balancing it with remembering Krishna, it's not a burden. It feels more of, I don't know, like a solve, if that makes any sense. So I really appreciate what you had to share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Andrea, for your beautiful appreciation. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for class. There will be, I just put in the chat box, I'm going to have to listen to this again because there were so many points that you brought home so beautifully. But I think what I really am really appreciating is this thoughtfulness of how to process it. One of the beauties of COVID is that there's been so many classes. And I'm finding myself listening to 2-3 classes a day. And especially at the beginning, I was like, oh. And then I'm like, but am I stopping to process it? Am I stopping to think, okay, Jimmy Jaya, what did you learn today? What did you learn? Instead of like, I'm right now being that bird, about good things, but I'm putting around. So thank you so much for that reminder, just to stop and how to process all the wonderful things taking in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. This is Anjali.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
I feel like I really connected with the point on time, especially because during last month, I have been constantly around people who are nearing the end of their lives. And I kind of just have this question of how can we, as devotee practitioners or as aspiring devotees, approach because I found myself being very frustrated, just like seeing people who are kind of coming to the close of their lives and essentially just wasting their time or just not connecting with the essence. And so I felt it was just bringing a lot of worry for me. And I really wanted to like somehow bring them closer to God, bring them closer to Krishna, inspiring them to reflect at least. And at the same time, I feel like it's not my position at all to be like that or to do it at all. And so I just have a question of how can we navigate that, especially knowing that time does move every one of us and affects every one of us too. And I also waste so much time that I could spend practicing Krishna consciousness further or better.
So if I understand correctly, you have to correct me because there was a network issue. You are saying, how do I ensure that I give Krishna consciousness to others in a way that will help them? Is that what you said in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a perfect reflection of my jumbled question.
No, your question was clear. It's just that I wasn't sure if I heard it correctly. So now answer to this would be, how can I give Krishna in the best possible way to others? Is by first asking yourself, what is it about Krishna consciousness that really charms your heart? It could be, Srila Prabhupada once said, Krishna consciousness preaching or teaching or sharing means basically telling people how you are happy. What makes you happy in Krishna consciousness? It could be prasadam, it could be deity worship, it could be holy name, it could be the Sankirtan, it could be book distribution, it could be the classes. So whatever excites you, share that joy with others. So be authentic. Whatever inspires you. You don't have to give the big philosophy. You can just speak at whatever level you are in. And that's one way of giving Krishna consciousness. And the other is genuinely caring for people and giving them love. And they would ask you later on that this person is amazing. Who is this person? And what are you doing which is helping you give yourself to me so much? And they would want to know what drives you. I know one person whose life is really, really in shambles, but he decided to take love from Krishna. Because what happens in relationships often, I've seen, that there's a lot of expectations conflict. Okay, I expect this from the other person expects this, and then there's a lot of conflict, a lot of expectations are unmet. So now the golden rule of any relationship is people, they want to receive, they want to receive love, and then only they are confident of giving love. But if in a relationship, two people are always thinking of how I can get love in this relationship, that's going to be a disaster, because each person is worried about his own needs or her own needs. Let's say one of them decides to take love from Krishna. So when we connect with Krishna in our own unique way and experience that connection and that love, then when I interact with another human being, I'm expecting nothing from him or her, because my source of love is Krishna. So I give to this person selflessly. So when that person sees that I'm giving him or her without an agenda, that person experiences selfless love and gets inspired to reciprocate with you. And then you are amazed, saying that, wow, I never expected so much, but I'm getting so much in return. And then you become very happy, and as a result, you become grateful, and then you are more than willing to give out more love. That's how the virtuous cycle of love expands. So it all begins with connection to Krishna. So if you are connected to Krishna, Krishna will inspire you to share Krishna with others in your own unique way. And then your relationships will improve, and then you'll see that your ability to give love will improve, and you'll also be able to give Krishna to others very meaningfully. And I also heard another question when you asked about how do I ensure that I don't waste so much time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So time, invested time rightly is always going to be a challenge. What I suggest is, don't look at, don't feel guilty for wasting time. In the sense, sometimes we need to take care of ourselves. We need to invest in physical well-being. You may need to exercise. You may need to study some books. You may need to do certain things. But just don't feel guilty for it, because if you feel guilty, then when you feel bad about something and you feel bad about yourself, then there is a good chance that you'll spend your time again in those same activities of which you're guilty of. That's the nature of the mind. Because when you think I'm bad, oh, I wasted my time. Oh, I'm so bad, I wasted my time. Then the mind tells you, oh, you're bad. So bad people do bad things. And so you will be led to do the same activity that you're feeling guilty about. Like I know one friend who used to feel very guilty for binge watching Netflix and Amazon Prime. Used to watch movies and used to feel guilty about it. And then he was so trapped in that vicious cycle. He was feeling guilty about binge watching, but he did more of the same activities. So I told him, you can get out of it only if you stop feeling guilty about it. First, you learn that you are not a bad person. You just need to invest your time rightly. So you give time for everything. Divide your day in a certain way. And first do what is most important for you. So if you do what is most important for you in the day, then you will see that in the long run, you will have very little time to waste. One of the biggest paradigm mistakes that we've made, our generation makes, is we want to do a lot of things in less time. And that's where we'll end up wasting time. I'll repeat. We want to do a lot of things in less time. So let us change this paradigm. Instead of trying to do a lot of things in less time, let us try to do the most important things within our limitations. Like, for example, I know my limitations. I can't do certain things and certain things I can do. So what is most important for me, considering my psychophysical limitations? I do that, then I'm peaceful, then I'm happy, and I'm productive. I contribute. But if I'm in a race of trying to do a lot of things in less time, then I get stressed. And that stress causes me to binge watch or binge eat or waste my time. therefore, instead of trying to do a lot of things in less time, which is the 21st century disease, let us try to do the most important things within our limitations. And then you see the difference it makes to your life. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
Yes, it was so helpful. I also want to reflect because you shared about guilt, allowing the mind to almost create our identity. I mean, if I'm reflecting correctly, I feel like it is also about us coming back to our identities as practicing devotees and aspiring lovers of Krishna, and then allowing the actions to come from that identity. And then when we are making mistakes, to separate our actions from our identity so that those negative actions are not influencing how we are identifying ourselves as, but rather just saying, I made a mistake and
Exactly.
I will now do what I would like to do ideally. Is that correct?
Perfect, perfect. I think that's the way we separate guilt from shame. In fact, guilt is good because guilt is, in one sense, when I did something wrong, so I'll correct it. But shame is when our identity merges with our mistake. Guilt is I did something wrong, I did something bad is guilt, but shame is I am bad, So when our identity is merged with our mistake, then that guilt becomes dangerous and that becomes shame. So most of us, we suffer from shame and we don't inherently like ourselves. And that's why we suffer a lot. So I think you made a good point there, saying that we should separate our identity from our actions, and therefore we can actually solve most of our problems. Thank you for that clarity. I sincerely thank all of you for attending today's class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.